Hi everybody, thanks for joining us today for this breakout session. My name is Erin Otan. I'm our Director of Research Programs at Z Prime. And with me today is Kim Shumway, Executive Vice President at All Connect, Linda Ferroni, the Chief Customer and Marketing Officer at the Orlando Utilities Commission, and Deanna Hardwick, the Interim VP of Customer Success at CPS Energy. Thanks to all of you for being here today. So this breakout session is part of the track that we're calling To Know is to Love, and that's really about getting to know your customers, all the different ways you can know them, what you need to do to get to know them. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, particularly with respect to customer experience and the customer journey. So I have one question for all of you that I'll start with. As the industry digitalizes and transforms, how can we really be sure that we keep the customer at the center of the conversation? So Kim, maybe I'll start with you.
Sure. I think it's really interesting. At All Connect, we have a saying, which is people have the power. I think we're seeing that across many industries, right? And if you don't keep the customer at the center, there's a good chance that business will start to fade. I think what's really interesting and exciting about the utility landscape is the energy companies, I feel like, are really stepping out on what that means. So I think everybody's doing a good job of keeping the customer in the center. I think you hit on it, Erin. When it comes to the digital experience, are we there? A lot of things going on in the communities, a lot of things going on with programs and products. But I also like to say it shouldn't be harder to start service with your electricity provider or your gas provider than it is to get a mortgage and a loan and sign your whole life away. And so I think it is, those that evolve. I think, again, customers been in the center. Those who evolve will see really dramatic shifts in how customers think about the energy brands that are in front of them.
That was great. I love your saying. I'm going to steal that.
That's fine. Steal anything.
Because we have a saying, but it's not as catchy. Our saying is simply that it all starts with our employees. We can't have good customer engagement. We can't really know our customers well if our employees aren't really engaged and really happy. So I won't go into a lot of the internal stuff, but we really have doubled down on employee engagement over the last year. We have a relatively new CEO, and he says over and over again, it's about customers, communities, and employees. And if you start backwards and work your way to customers, you'll win with customers every time. So we have been doubling down with our employees and employee engagement and programs around that. But on the customer side, we really do believe that digitization shouldn't get in the way of the customer experience. It should augment the customer experience. So we are looking at all kinds of tools that we want to add to our portfolio. We have added some, but we have a journey. We have a journey that we're documenting right now, really our digitization journey. And it's about a 5-year journey, to be honest. That's not a fast thing, but my belief is it won't end. That's just the 5 years in front of us that we can see. But we're on a path to get there, and that's what we'll talk more about.
So for us at CPS Energy, and I appreciate what Linda said, talking about the employees, the customers, and community, that leads into our saying of people first. So if anybody's heard Paula Williams speak yesterday, that is our focus, and that's how we're going to deliver on our promise to the community. But at the same time, customers are going to demand it, whether we put them at the center or not, right? There's no choice. They're going to be there front and center. So we either get to deliver to them, or Kim, to your point, they're going to find another way to get their utilities delivered to them. So even though we're a municipally owned utility, customers still have a choice. They can go to their city council, our board, or on social media and talk about what that experience looks like. And they hold us to standards not of other utilities, right? So we've talked a lot about at this conference about the Amazon experience. Well, in San Antonio, we are challenged with experiences like USAA, right? We also have HEB. I don't know if you're familiar with HEB. That's our grocer here in South Texas. And Forbes actually named them the smartest supermarket you've never heard of. And they do magical things. Like every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, my groceries show up to me, and I say it's absolutely magical. But it's a digital experience that my grocery store enables for me. And so knowing that customers have those experiences, we've got to continue to focus on what that looks like and how to deliver on that, while at the same time recognizing that 1 in 4 households in San Antonio don't have access to the internet. So as we're designing from a digital perspective, how do we also partner with throughout our community to close that digital divide?
And so what are some of the ways that you're getting to better know and understand your customers, and what are you finding are some of their biggest pain points? And Linda, I'll start with you.
Sure. We are the hometown utility, municipal utility as well. And, we really believe that if we don't have competition in the state of Florida, but if we did, we'd want our customers to choose OUC. And we say that walking around our halls all the time. I think people probably wouldn't expect a municipal utility to say that. They're like, oh, you have a monopoly. But we do. If customers had a choice, why would they choose us? And it's part of our strategy. You see it documented in our strategic initiatives. We roll it all the way down to all of our frontline workers. It's really important that they understand why we're different. Why do we believe we're the best utility in the nation? We could say that, but what's different about us? Hopefully every utility says that, So, what makes us different and unique? So as that, we listen to our customers in the same ways everybody else does. We listen to J.D. Power, we take transaction surveys, we look at verbatims and try and gain insights. But we also talk to customers at all of our many community events. We're doing unique things out in the community every week. And we have the opportunity to interact with them one-on-one and just hear what's on people's minds. We really want to know what frustrates them, what they love us, what they love about us, what do they wish we would do, or what do they wish we would stop doing, all the things that you just described. We'd like our relationship to be frictionless with them. So we talk with them about that. We've got a series of focus groups going on. We've got 3 different focus groups going on in about a 6-month period of time, which is a little overwhelming for us. But it's great. We're getting great insights. One of them that we just finished is taking a new look at how we segment our customers. We've got a number of strategic programs that really require some customer segmentation work. So we're kind of redefining our personas and doing that kind of work. We just finished one last week, and I'm dying to see the results, but it's about rooftop solar. Like, why are customers who have bought rooftop solar, both through us and through some other installers. Like, why did they choose rooftop instead of our community solar? What was good about the experience? What was frustrating? Why OUC? Why not OUC? So really understanding rooftop solar. And then the last focus group will be on our IRP, so our 20-year IRP that we're doing this summer. And that will really be a combination of a survey to all of our customers and focus groups to understand what are parameters they'd like to see tested as part of the IRP as a way to kind of engage the community in the IRP process. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to really understand and be as relevant as we can for our customers.
And Deanna, I think CPS is probably doing some similar things.
Absolutely. I think you talked about the community dialogue, so we do have a very deliberate community approach to be out in the community, to go meet the customers where they're at. So we do have public input sessions, so everything where we're talking about what our generation plan looks like for the next 20 years, we're asking the public for their feedback on that. But at the same time, we're going to local churches or going to different town halls, wherever we can get in and have people understand the different solutions that we offer. I think that's an opportunity that our customers have told us that they don't even know all of the products, services, and solutions that we have available to them. So it gives us an opportunity to have that dialogue. So it's about, for us, creating the whole ecosystem of feedback feedback and then doing something with it. So it's the community feedback, it's using social media. Customers will tell us what they like about us and what they really, really don't like about us on social media. So it's making sure that we have a mechanism to understand what that feedback looks like. And then also leveraging our employees. We at CPS Energy, we have over 3,000 employees who are all consumers of power. And so let's talk to them. They're not only consumers, right, and customers, majority of them customers of CPS Energy, but they also have the unique opportunity where they're the ones doing the things and hearing from the customers the most. So what are customers telling you, right? We think we know, but tell us what they're telling you. So it's not just listening to the phone calls, it's also listening to the employees. And I know you mentioned the customer journeys. So we're going down that path. We're creating the whole customer experience department, but part of it is, you know, we can have pretty customer journey maps all day long, but if we don't have the employee map and we haven't been deliberate about creating that employee experience to empower them to deliver on that customer journey, then we're going to fail, right? So it's about making sure that we empower the employees, we get their feedback, we circle back and tell them what we've done with what we've told them, which gets to the employee engagement component as well. But it also just helps shape the experience better on behalf of the customers.
And Kim, in thinking about a customer experience, you know, it's something that should be very deliberate how you plan it out. So how does design play into the customer experience and offer something, you know, a seamless experience for customers?
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting. So not being a utility, but working with them for over 20 years, primarily on the mover experience. If you think about where your journey with a customer starts, that's where it is. And if you can create a wow experience right out of the gate, then there's a great chance that that customer loyalty and engagement is going to continue to ramp if done really, really well, to your point. I think we have the advantage, again, not being a utility, where we work with a lot of different industries from a digital perspective, healthcare, financial services, things like that. And so what we can do is apply some of those customer things to the utility industry and the energy industry, which we're super excited about. So I think there's things that are what I would call across the board low-hanging fruit. People want choice, convenience, control. They're going to do business with companies and brands that make it easy, that know a little bit about who they are, right? And really fast. And so I think when we think about design, we think about the whole journey, the journey in totality. So it's not how you show up in search or what your website looks like or what happens in the call center. I mean, all of those things are components, but it's really about how do you connect that experience? How, you know, how do you make sure that if a customer starts on social, but goes to your website and ends up in your contact center, that the person who answered the phone knows that they were on social and knows that they were on their website. And I think these guys have said it, it's a journey. It's never gonna stop. We've been doing them, you know, helping utilities with their movers for 20 years, and yet, you know, I think this is going to be a really big deal from a big year from a digital perspective, because we can start to integrate things into the mover experience like registering to vote and changing your address and some products and services that, you know, we haven't thought about. But if you think about it from a customer perspective and a journey perspective, that's where you want to go. We spend a lot of time with personalization, so I'll give you guys some other examples. If you come to one of our websites, you can typically check out and do things online, but there's always a phone number because customers are ambidextrous, I say, right? They want to just go wherever they want to go. And, you know, we probably own the largest bank of 800 numbers. And so when you come to our website, I identify an 800 number with Deanna. So then when Deanna calls, I know exactly where Deanna's been on my site, right? That's one-to-one personalization. I'm not starting the conversation over, how can I help you? What do you need? I already know. You're a moving customer. You just set up your account and you're hanging out around e-billing. Okay, well, maybe that's where I want to start. Doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up, but I think, you know, those type of things. I'll let you guys talk. I don't want to monopolize the whole thing. I could keep talking, but I don't.
And anything to add on the design perspective?
Yeah, I think from a design, it's being able to have partners like AllConnect for us is so key, because we don't always have the latest technology or the right analytics to be able to create that personalized experience. So we've heard a lot of conversation about the, you know, move from personas to the experience of one, and sometimes it's just about creating that perception of personalization.
Yep.
Right? And so
intent is very important.
It absolutely is, and so being able to partner with AllConnect and see what tools and resources they have as we're building our analytics and our ability to know more about our customers, because we have a bank, and now with their experience through AllConnect, it also just expands our ability to know who our customers are and to give them a better experience.
And Kim, you mentioned the journey in totality, which really could mean offline as well. So Linda, could you talk a little bit about how you serve customers who are not as digitally savvy, or how you even just begin the offline journey?
Yeah, you know, the online versus offline is an interesting one, because it's not really it's not a black and white question. Yep. So my answer is not all that black and white either. Because even no matter how offline you are, you're pretty much surrounded by integrated marketing of some sort at all times. So we recognize in our service territory, we've got to serve customers that are incredibly technology savvy, and to your point, some that don't even have internet connection. So, you know, we do look at how you do all of that. And you know, I think customers just expect something really different today. We all mentioned the Amazon, but in Orlando, we live in the world of theme parks. Mm-hmm. And everyone in Orlando goes to theme parks. And, you know, Disney changed the game. You know, in my past life, that was my biggest client. So I was in the middle of helping design all of that. And so to see what they've done to not just know the household, but to know the individuals in the household, and to have a consistent relationship with them, so that when you arrive for your vacation, they already know through an app your itinerary, all the guests that are coming, all their preferences,
how old your kids are, what rides they like.
Yeah, and they can create those magical moments, because they know it's, you know, your daughter's birthday, and her favorite's Ariel, and Ariel magically pops out and says, "Happy birthday, little Joan," you know, and the parents are like, "Wow,
so true."
And it happened because you told them everything.
Right. You gave them everything.
Because you trust Disney.
Because you trust them, yeah.
Because you trust Disney. So I think it's a huge opportunity for utilities, because who else do they trust? They trust, generally speaking, they trust utilities. Utilities already have all their household information. You may not have information on their kids and their ages, but you know, Disney starts tracking that from the moment you start ordering diapers and you start ordering baby movies. Like they know your kids. They know when they hit Nickelodeon age. They know when they hit every stage in life, you know. So we as utilities can do the same thing. So we're looking at it and saying, how can we predict when that heat pump is going to need to be replaced?
Yep.
How can we tell when that pool pump is starting to go bad? How can we tell when we're a water utility too, but how can we tell when their water usage is spiking? So, you know, how can we be relevant? Disney inserts themselves into your life, but they do it at times when you welcome it. So how can we be that welcome into our customers' journey? And you know, that takes something special to really use the data, the tools that they're talking about, not just when our customers reach out to you, but when your customers aren't reaching out to you, but should be, and they don't know it. So that's on our path. So talk to me in a few years. I'll let you know how that's going.
That's awesome.
I have not been to a theme park in a really long time, because I didn't know.
You will be impressed.
You should go.
Yeah.
Even if you're just a technology geek, to kind of be thinking behind the scenes, what are they doing to make all this happen? Is
amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
For us to be able to go through and look at those customers that are offline, we just went to, we have 4 walk-in centers on the major quadrants across San Antonio, and it was really just some of that human-centered design. So just watching people and who they are, and who we expected to come into our walk-in centers was not who was coming into our walk-in centers. So a lot of it you think, oh, that's the elderly lady who's been coming here for 30 years that just likes to see Madi in the middle of her day. So I do that once a month on Thursday. It's time for me to come see you, right? And we had some of that, but we had a lot of millennials, right? So you're thinking, you're a millennial. Why are you standing here in a teller line to pay your utility bill when you're holding an iPhone? And so it was really 3 reasons. So one of it is we have got a cash business, and so they've got cash and they're coming to pay us in cash. Others are, kind of with that digital divide. I'm not going to use my data plan to pay you whenever I can just show up in your walk-in center. But I think the most impactful one was it was cultural, right? This is where I came with my grandmother, or this is where I came with my parents. This is how you pay your utility bill, right? I pay my phone bill online because that's what I've been taught. But culturally, I want to be here. So let me be here to give you money. And so that was one of those things of so we've been thinking about our customers, our walk-in customers in a different manner than we should be considering. We've got to figure out how we can incent that change in perspective of, hey, you can pay us online. Don't you want to? It's cool. It's not all that exciting in our walk-in centers. I mean, we make it very, very pretty for you, but there's other options. So it's just a matter of helping customers know what options are there, and that it doesn't have to be a cultural experience when you come to our walk-in center. We can create other cultural experiences.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that, because I guess I thought of 2 things at the same time. One, we did a survey recently, because we survey all of our customers, and a lot of people just didn't know, to your point, that they could do things online with their utility. So it wasn't that they didn't want to, it was just they really didn't think they could. I mean, it was like 70% thought that they had to call or walk in. The other thing, though, you could go the other way and say, hey, if people are going to come, what else do I want them to know? And how do I make this a destination? Right. And again, I'm not, it could go either way, but it could be really interesting, and you wouldn't have known maybe to pick that other path. Right. Maybe you would have looked at it as, either a cost center or, something you have to maintain, opposed to, wow, how do I create, if people are going to come and they like coming, that says a lot about my brand. So now how do I amp that up? And how do I build a relationship in a different way?
Absolutely.
It's so interesting that you said that, because we actually closed our walk-in centers. That doesn't stop people from walking in, I'm here to tell you. So we have an unofficial walk-in center at our headquarters, as people come in. No, we do. We have a couple people always down there now. We don't advertise it, we don't call it a walk-in center, but people come and But we're talking about reopening a couple to create what you're describing, like a community center.
People go to Google and Apple and Starbucks.
Yes, exactly. And people, we go out of our way to create these fabulous community events. Why not have it permanently and add, energy
showcase all your new stuff,
all of our new products. So. Same, yes.
Yeah, so one thing we did, we partnered with our marketing team and created these kind of interchangeable things of what we want them to know about the different products and services. And hey, don't you want to do this online? So we can kind of help target the message and make people aware of what we have, and to help them get to a different perspective about us. We've created virtual agents. So whenever they go, you get to sit down, instead of, if you don't want to see, if you're okay with not seeing a live person, you can sit down and
have a little,
and it's almost like a FaceTime experience, right? So you can have that interaction with a virtual agent, so it's safer for our employees as opposed to having them out face to face. And we always have to make sure that we're making sure our folks are safe and secure, but at the same time, it cuts down the wait times, because I can go sit here and talk to someone who doesn't have a wait over at one of our other walk-in centers, or even leverage our availability in the customer service. So we've been able to gain efficiencies by finding some of those quick wins, but there's always that opportunity. But it all had to start with us identifying who that customer was, right? We can't be designing for just one customer whenever there's a whole bunch of other customers that are choosing different channels, and we need to be aware of that.
And so how are you incorporating data from new and emerging technologies or new programs like the virtual assistant that you mentioned? How are you taking that data and leveraging the data?
I'm very fortunate to have a partner, Amelia Batters. She back here. She got to speak last week. For us, we're working with how we get in all of the transaction points. So we have our AMI meters. We have some third-party data through Claritas, but it's also that transaction level data, so whenever someone's interacting with us, and we're continuing to expand upon that, and so it's partnering with Amelia from a data analytics perspective and all of her team to see what that tells us about our customers, so we can get to the 360 view of that individual customer, and then what that looks like for the clusters within a segment, and kind of keeps rising it above.
You know, we've got an emerging technology team that really, I'm really proud of the work they do, because they really keep customers at the center of solving problems for today and tomorrow. And we're really focused on using data to solve some problems that we have in front of us. And one of them is the fact that we have a lot of customers that really are looking for renewable energy, and I am too, and it's a problem in Florida because we might be called the Sunshine State, but it is the partly cloudy state.
It is a rain every day.
And it is. If you are one of those people who went to Disney, you know it rains every afternoon when the sun is at its highest. So, you know, so how do you make, and we don't have wind, and, you know, so really that's our best bet for renewables. So how do we solve this problem? So we're installing micro weather stations all around our service territory, and we're getting hyper-local data on our weather, which sounds kind of crazy, but it doesn't really exist. And it's very, you know, it's very specific even to where you live in Florida, you know, what those what those weather patterns look like. So making solar dispatchable really requires all of that data, from all those data points. So you know when this solar array versus that solar array versus that solar array are going to be, you know, dispatching energy or generating energy that you can dispatch. And it'll help us figure out where we really need battery storage, how we would deploy it. You know, and even where we might want to strategically install solar, because we do have 3 large utility scale solar arrays, and we're planning to do 2 more in the next few years. But that means a lot of solar all goes down at the same time, because anyone would tell you it's far more economical to install large-scale solar. But when you start looking at these crazy weather patterns, it's actually really valuable to have a little bit of solar all over the place, because it sort of balances it all out. So we're studying that, which is pretty neat. We've actually got a project with the National Renewable Energy Lab, which there's some friends here in the room from there, and we're doing a really fascinating rooftop solar study to understand if you could take every rooftop in Central Florida and put solar on it, you know, how much solar would that be? So it looks at what's shaded, what has the right orientation to the sun, what's the right tilt angle, all those things. Really crunches a lot of data, and then layers in what would those customers' propensity to buy be based on all kinds of data that NREL brings to the table. What would our business models be to offer programs to customers? What's it worth to us to incent them? Should we own it and lease it to them? Like, what models even make sense, and how do you lay batteries on top of that? So there's some really cool things we're doing with data kind of in that realm for, you know, really for our customers, figure out how we solve that. How do we get renewable, which is what our customers are asking for.
And Kim, I know All Connect, like you mentioned before, works across many different industries. So what are some lessons learned from other industries that you think could be applied to the energy industry?
Related to data or just?
In general.
In general.
Maybe related to data.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, you know, who has a love-hate relationship with data? It's like the most validating and freeing thing, and the most, you know, stifling. There's so much of it. What do you do? I think when we think about other industries, I think it is a lot of sharing of data. It's the data you have, it's the data the customer will give you. It's third-party data that's really going to create, you know, that amazing experience for a consumer. And consumers, if they trust you, they'll give you a lot of data. I mean, they really will if they trust you. And so I think when you look across, certain industries, I'll give you a financial services example, and then I'll give you a utility example. On the financial services side, we have a website called The Points Guy. Anybody know The Points Guy? It's the travel cards, right? But because of the integrations and the data that we have, and because we own that site, if a consumer goes there, maybe they're just checking out original content from us, but then let's say they go to American Express, we're going to build an experience and we're going to present content on American Express's website that is around traveling, right? So I do think it comes back to data and figuring out how to personalize that. So we're going to offer you the American Express rewards card. I'm making that up, by the way. I don't know that that's a real card. Opposed to something else. If you are an existing customer with American Express, we're not going to offer you a card. You already have one. So maybe we're going to offer you identity protection, right, as an added service for being a loyal American Express company. I think the utility industry is getting really sophisticated around products and services and how do you bundle those things together to create value for a consumer. And in order to target that really, really well, you need data, kind of like the solar example. So we had a utility recently that wanted to combine a smart thermostat with a time of use plan, only in certain geographies, right? And you had to have internet. So if you didn't, and you had to have air conditioning. So if you think about that, right? I mean, you don't want that message to get out to everybody. It's not going to create a good experience. People are going to be like, why did you send me that? I don't have air conditioning. I don't have the internet. This doesn't apply to me. And all of a sudden, I call it abandonment. People say, oh, why did you send me that? And it took a lot of data from what we had, from the utility had, and everything to create an experience that, one, really drove adoption because it was targeted to the right people. It created a way to get data, even more so to figure out, okay, what would they do next? How would they respond to something? And it also gave us a way to shape kind of ROI long term. How would that, if you took that and propagated it through a territory, what does that look like? How does that model look? So I think those are some examples inside and outside of customer experiences that would work.
And Deanna, you mentioned HEB and USAA earlier. Are they partners of CPS, or which partnerships, how are you leveraging partnerships in your community to provide a better experience?
Well, we're very fortunate that they're also our customers, so we get to capitalize on that relationship. So not just through having our key account managers, but also seeing how we can engage with them in our community involvement. So whenever we do, we're out in the community working for some type of event, right? It's how can we partner, whether it be, hey, we want to do a C3 type competition, right? So we get to partner with USAA from that perspective. And so they bring in their innovation and their thoughts, and also a lot of their people like to participate in those types of events. So we get to learn a lot from that experience. But then at the same time, we have, because we're municipally owned, and some of you might have been able to participate in the City of the Future that we had down in San Antonio with Z Prime, I believe back in February. And it's really partnering not just with the USAAs and HEB, but it's partnering with our owner, that's the City of San Antonio, and other municipally owned, the utilities. So it's our water partners, it's our transportation partners, so that we think about it, Kim, I think to your earlier point about it's that customer journey. So when someone moves for the first time, there's a lot of things you've got to check off your list. So if we can, the city's saying, hey, CPS, SAWS, how do you guys get together and make it one-stop shop? Right, so it's the full customer experience, not just our own customer experience. So it's figuring out how we have those partnerships with our city. And then Maria Garcia spoke about it yesterday, about our community engagement. So being able to, when we go into our low and moderate income customers' homes, we're not just saying, well, these are the resources that you have that you can engage with to support you on your utility bill. It's also bringing in the food bank whenever we notice that the pantry is bare. It's bringing in other opportunities, saying, hey, you might be eligible for a weatherization program that we offer, but if you don't, there's still other things that you can do within our community, and here are other resources. So some of that we have to partner in our community to say, what resources do we have available to help these customers?
Linda, any partners?
Yeah, I think similar to you. The local universities, University of Central Florida is in Orlando, as well as, literally all the state universities in Florida we partner with. We go after a lot of grants, and we use partners to go after a lot of grants and things like that. But there's a couple that I'll highlight that I think are unique that we're just embarking on now. One is with what's called the Central Florida Land Trust. And it's really a philanthropic, privately owned philanthropic organization. They bought up 86 really, very underprivileged homes, mostly single-family homes. Several are duplexes, but they bought them from almost one owner. And these homes had not been updated, upgraded, repaired in years. And so the goal is to really take an impoverished part of town and take the time and keep the people in their homes. The goal is not to gentrify and have people move out of that part of town, but it's to give them, some really basic living conditions and things that we all want, like electricity and air conditioning in Florida and internet connectivity. And so, what's our role in that? Why would OUC be involved? Well, we're helping to make sure they're selecting the right fixtures, the right plumbing, the right HVAC, the attic installation. And we're in our rebates and things, of course, make it easy for those to all be applied. But we want to use it a little bit as a test bed for the income constraint. So, whether it's college students, because it's close to a downtown college campus, or it's a single parent with kids, or it's retired folks, or sometimes multiple families living in one dwelling. Whatever the situation is, we want to try different programs that we have and see, how does prepaid work in different scenarios? How might thermostats work when it's people that aren't used to having a thermostat, and what kind of education is required? Because we have an audit team, energy and water efficiency audit team that goes in, and they're going to spend extra time and make regular visits and just kind of see how all these things go. Use it as a place to pilot time of use rates and different things that we're doing. So, that's a really interesting thing, and that we're doing, and it's a part of town that all of Orlando is really focused on. How do we bring them up? It's a part of town that's kind of been forgotten. So that's really exciting. And then another one that I'll mention is with our local transit partner. We just gained agreement to move forward with purchasing the batteries and the charging infrastructure for electric buses. So we'll purchase them, and then they'll lease them back from us. So we'll learn what the impact to our grid is, what's the second life battery value. I've heard others talking about this too, and I think a few others are a little bit ahead of us, so I look forward to learning from them, and hopefully we can share as we go through this. And I think for the transit agency, they get to learn what's the impact of their operations, how can this lower their cost of operations. And it really goes towards the city of Orlando's greenhouse gas reduction goals. So we're excited about those partnerships.
I think we've got about 5 minutes left in the panel, so I wanted to open it up to any questions from the audience. Any questions for the panelists?
Regarding innovation within your companies or within the utilities and municipalities, what has been the biggest hurdle for y'all as far as implementing new innovations? I know you have dedicated groups and folks that focus on this, but what's the biggest hurdle in doing that?
Well, go ahead.
Thank you. So for us, I think in the creation of a team for innovation, sometimes people think then that's somebody else's job, right? So it's helping to say we're all in this together. And I think a lot of it is the frontline workers are the people who do the things every day. They're the ones that have some really good thoughts. So it's inspiring them to share that innovation and championing that. And so sometimes it's more of that next layer of leadership to help them enable those conversations and say, when someone says something, you've got to acknowledge it. And what can you do with this? Do you know what to do if someone gives you an idea? And I also think that the teams have started, or the innovation team is really leading a employee-centric, kind of that customer, that C3 competition to help spur innovation, say, we want your thoughts. And so sometimes it's having that formal program, and other times it's just going to our new employees and saying, hey, you guys have the fresh eyes, right? As you're coming here, tell us what we're doing wrong and ask us. We are 159 years old. We probably have processes that are 159 years old, right? So tell us and ask us those questions. And sometimes it's I don't know, right? And we've never thought about it that way. And the other part is because we have employees that have such tenure with us, it's letting them know that the decisions that we made back then were the right decisions for us. And that's okay, right? But that doesn't mean that it has to be the right decision for us moving forward. So and I always say, can we just tilt our head, squint one eye, and look at it through a different lens? I think it's the formal programs and some of that dialogue to say it's okay to speak up, it's okay to look at things differently, at least for us.
Yep. I can totally relate to that. We have a certain population that really isn't that interested in changing. This conference is not one they'd be interested in coming to. I'm sorry, but they don't want to meet any of you. But we have another portion of the population, and granted it's a smaller portion, but they've totally caught the innovation bug. And I think we have a new CEO. Our prior CEO just retired just over a year ago. In his last few years, man, his legacy, he was trying to push every new idea and shove it through and put it across the finish line so he could call it his. And that was great. I mean, people saw from the top that innovation is important. It's the way of the future. And God bless him for doing that. Late in his career, he was a brilliant man. So our current CEO is right there too. He's not quite in such a hurry because he's a relatively young guy, but the people that kind of caught the bug, the ideas just keep coming. Yeah. And so it's kind of, we have a different issue. We kind of have this random smattering of innovation ideas, and our innovation team is relatively new. And if you haven't worked there for 10 years is still new, you're still a newbie. So none of them have been there 10 years because they're all new folks that came from other places. So them trying to have the influence to use our innovation, we got a funnel, kind of innovation review funnel to determine what comes through and what gets put aside to be evaluated later, and how projects go and which ones are going to make it through the funnel and turn into pilots and things like that. So getting people to actually use a process versus just having all these ideas all over the place, that's probably our biggest challenge at the moment. So that's another check back in a couple years, and I'll let you know how that's going.
I think that's relevant even for newer companies. We're newer. But culturally, I think you always have to challenge yourself with diverse thoughts, right? And making sure that you've got a lot of diversity in thought is a big deal. And then sometimes you have the problem where there's so many ideas. How do you figure out, what's the best path forward? But I have to say, and I've only been involved with the utilities for about 5 years now, I definitely see a push forward. I mean, and you guys have probably heard a lot about this, but people do have Innovation Lab. They are challenging the status quo. And I do think that is the first step, right? So, sorry, we have all these sayings, but another one on my team specifically is think big, start small, but start. I learned something through kind of the lean startup process about new product development that I feel like is a kind of a life lesson. I've used it with my children, which is really whenever you're faced with a challenge, you really only have 3 choices, if you really think about it. You can pivot, you can persevere, or you can kill it, meaning you can stop doing it. And I think when you empower yourself to think like that, right, this isn't a barrier, I just need to make a decision around which path, and I'm not really stuck. Maybe I decide to persevere, and 6 months later, I'm like, well, that was dumb, like, I'm gonna stop. But those are choices, but if you don't start down that journey, I think that's the biggest risk, right? The biggest risk is not starting the process.
Here, here.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, Linda, Deanna. It was really fun talking to you all today. Thanks everyone for being here. I think there's about 15 minutes before the next session, so enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
It's great to meet you. Nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
Very fun. It was fun. Yeah, I got some good, I always get good stuff when I speak with people.
I know.